Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on practical project management. Our guest speaker today is Adrienne Kroll, who's the Assistant Director of Quality for NC State's Industry Expansion Solutions. Before I turn it over to Adrienne, I'll go over a few housekeeping items. We will ask everyone to remain on mute throughout the presentation. If you need assistance, please use the chat button and we'll get to you as soon as possible. And if you have questions related to the presentation, please use the Q&A button. We will be sending out a link to the recording and the PowerPoint, so look for that in the next day or two. And today's webinar is brought to you by NC State's Industry Expansion Solutions. Your post-webinar email will include additional information about IES. With that, I'm going to stop my share, Adrienne, and turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Susan. Let me get my screen shared. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. As Susan said, my name is Adrienne Kroll, and I'm hoping this will be a fun webinar today to kind of walk us through a little bit of a different take on practical project management, not just from the project manager's perspective, but more so from a project team member's perspective. So just for high-level agenda, we're going to start with talking about the importance of having a clearly defined problem or opportunity before you start your project, how to set clear expectations, understanding the role of a project manager. So we'll just touch on that a bit because really we want to compare that to the role of a team member. And then we're going to talk about effective communication amongst the project team, how to handle conflicting interests. And then just for fun, we're going to talk a little bit about the future of PM. Since AI and ChatGPT are such a huge topic right now, we're going to talk a little bit about that, just to touch on it. And then we'll talk about the project management course that we offer with IES. I've been with IES for 9 years now, going on 10. And I'm right now I'm the main resource that teaches project management across the state. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. All right, so just to jump in, so first part of any project, and for those of you that are well-versed in project management, or even if you're new to project management, the most important thing to keep in mind is having a clearly defined problem or opportunity statement before you start. We all know a project is not just necessarily a problem or issue, but sometimes it could be an opportunity for improvement, right? So having some type of project charter that walks you through these questions at a minimum is very important. So I won't read them all to you, but just to name a few, you definitely want to ask, why are we doing this project? What's the business need? A lot of times we're assigned a project, or we may try to take on a project and we don't really know how it aligns to the larger business need, right? So it's important to understand that. Why is it important, or how is it important in comparison to other projects, right? We're all busy. A lot of times we have competing priorities. So where does this project fall in comparison to other projects in terms of importance, priority, availability, things like that? What are the boundaries and constraints, right? So what boundaries are we working within for this project? And then what resources do we need? So remember, resources are not just people, right? Resources could also be financial, it could be equipment, data, right? Are all resources that you need in order to start a project and complete a project. I'm going to skip down a little bit. What determines success, right? So we'll talk a little bit about setting clear expectations and how do we know a project is successful. And then lastly, who are our stakeholders? So at a minimum, we want to walk through these questions in the form of some type of a charter, something that we can revisit as needed throughout the project. All right, so moving forward from there, setting clear expectations. So that's another thing to get started with. So in order to get a clear set of expectations, these 4 questions are really key to start with, right? So who is this project going to impact? right? So what project impacts will this have? At the end of the day, who's going to determine success? So this is like your stakeholders, right? But not only who determines success, but what are their expectations? We focus a lot on gathering requirements, but not only do we need to know needs and requirements, we also need to understand expectations, because we all know sometimes expectations can differ from what's required, right? They may have had some additional expectation that wasn't communicated. So it's important to understand that. Again, what are the limitations and constraints we're working within? And then how are you going to create some type of shared understanding of what the outcome of that project will be? All right, so these are your baseline questions. And one tool that I really like to use to help me with setting expectations is what we call a context diagram. My background is in engineering, and so we used these a lot when I was in school, and so I've pretty much carried them over into other roles that I've had over the years, and I found that it helps a lot in project management. So a context diagram is simply a tool that does just what it says. It helps define the context of that problem or that situation. Or let's say in this case, you're putting in some type of new ordering system. So maybe a sales ordering system. So who are all the stakeholders that are impacted by this new system? And then what are their needs and expectations, or how is it going to impact them? How are they going to interact with it? You could put, like in this case, we have a database, or ordering system in the middle. You could take that out and put, the name of any type of project in there. So it could be a database, it could be a project name, whatever you want to put in the middle. And then you tie to that the stakeholders. And so for instance, managers will use this sales ordering system. So what's important to them? They need to be able to receive employee lists. They need to be able to input new employees and vendors. Employees are also a stakeholder. They need to be able to update products and categories and employees. Customers, of course, are a stakeholder. They're going to receive order invoices and be able to input orders. So the great thing about setting up a context diagram from the beginning is that not only does it help define this for you and kind of key you in to go meet with the stakeholders that are important to find out, okay, what are your not only your needs, but also expectations. What does success look like for you? So it helps you on the front end, but then it also helps you on the back end, because once this system is in place, now I know all the areas that I need to go communicate. If there's been changes or a new documentation created, I know exactly who that needs to be communicated to. So I really love this tool for you. So this is of course is helpful for the project manager, but just keep in mind that if you are a team member, you will more than likely be contributing to this, because you may have more input into impacts than even the project manager may have. Okay. All right, so let's touch a little bit on the role of a project manager. This is what we usually think about when we think about PM. So, of course, developing the project plan is key. Managing deliverables according to that plan and recruiting the right staff is also key. They're going to be leading and managing the team. And then a big piece of it is determining what methodology are we going to use. So is it just a traditional project management I'm sorry, just like a traditional project where we're going to be looking at status, we're going to be meeting on some regularity to discuss where we are in the project, or maybe is it like a continuous improvement type project where we're mapping out the current state and looking at future state? So what methodology are we going to use? Also, a big part of it is managing the schedule, putting the schedule in place, determining each phase, managing that through, and assigning tasks to team members. And then lastly, they have to communicate, constant communication, right, back to the sponsor and other key stakeholders that we've already identified. All right, so this is the role of a project manager, and I'll just touch a little bit. If you're familiar with the Project Management Institute, PMI, they are pretty much the governing body for project management, and they develop what we call the project management body of knowledge. And if you are ever wanting to be certified as a project management professional, PMI is the organization that you would go through. And so around about 2015, they came out with, well, 2010, 2015, they came out with the kind of trifold skills of a project manager. And so they said, really, what does the ideal PM skill set look like? And that's a combination of technical expertise, strategic and business management expertise, and leadership. So when we talk about strategic and business management, those are things like your business acumen, understanding customer relationships and customer satisfaction, knowing specific operational functions. So like if you're in finance or marketing, strategic planning, those are all your strategy type skill sets. And then you wrap around that the technical expertise. So you may understand how to gather data. You may understand agile type project management practices, requirements and risk management, and then all your traditional factors of measuring a project. So like time, budget, and cost estimation. All right. And so now we're going to layer on top of that even the leadership skills. So that's where you understand how to brainstorm, you know how to coach and mentor, you know how to manage conflict and have those good interpersonal skills, that emotional intelligence, and how to team build. So this is the ideal from the Project Management Institute's perspective. This is the ideal skill set, and I wanted to show you this because a lot of times this is attributed just to the project manager, but I really believe even if you are a team member, you need to have some of these skills as well that you're bringing to the team, because you're in essence managing your piece of that project. Okay. All right. So then let's delve a little bit deeper specifically. How does this compare to if you are a team member specifically? So I did some research, and I really was able to kind of lump together 8 key roles of a team member on a project. And so we'll step through each one of these one at a time to just talk about them in a little bit more detail. All right. So the first one, contributing to overall project objectives. That's probably the first and most key one. So as a project team member, you are responsible for contributing to project objectives and your specific deliverable. You do this by contributing to overall planning of the project activities, and then, of course, you execute your task, but it needs to be within expected quality standards. And that's how overall you ensure the project is successful. So if everybody's doing their piece of it, executing their task, we can make the whole project a success. And so necessary team member skill sets, you'll notice, largely mirrors what the project manager is doing. So you have a mix of technical expertise. You have to know how to solve problems, because you have a plan A, but remember, you may need a plan B, plan C, plan D, right? So how do we solve problems as they arise? You'll also need to have interpersonal skills, depending on what that task is you're completing, and you have to be highly organized, right, in order to get your piece of it done. All right, so then beyond that, another key role of a team member is to provide expertise. And so subject matter expertise, in my mind, there's some pros and cons to it. I think we focus a lot on the pros of subject matter expertise, but I've been on enough project teams and managed enough projects to know there can be some cons to that as well. All right, so some of the pros, we know as a team member, you're going to help ensure the workflow and information is organized and detailed in order to help meet that project's overall end game, right? You're going to provide valuable content and feedback on the project. Having subject matter expertise allows you to divide and conquer, right? Because you can give certain parts of a project or delegate certain parts of a project depending on who has expertise in that area. It gives exposure to new ways of doing things. Subject matter experts, you may have a different way of doing things than someone else would, and so it brings diverse opinions and feedback and skill sets. And then subject matter expertise also comes with deep experience, of course, in that subject. But now there's also some cons to think about, right? So just because you're a subject matter expert does not mean you are an expert in 100% of that subject, and that's okay, right? For instance, on our team, the majority of what our team does at IES is management systems. And so if you're familiar with ISO and understanding ISO management systems like 9001 and 14001, things like that, well, I may be a subject matter expert in quality, but I'm not a subject matter expert in environmental health and safety per se. And so even though I may be able to bring some subject matter expertise, I don't have 100% of knowledge in all of management systems. And that's okay, right? We have other people that are. And so you can delegate things. So it's okay if you don't have 100%. You have to be careful too as a subject matter expert that you don't fall into the always right thinking. Like, I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to do it, so I know I'm right. And you can't tell me any different, right? So we have to be careful not to fall into that mindset, because what happens is, and I've seen this in the past, where sometimes for newer team members or folks that are newer to an organization participating on a team, there is a tendency to yield to the subject matter expert. And so you end up missing out on valuable input because of that. So just keep an eye out for that. Also, making sure that we're not shutting down the ideas, thoughts, and opinions of those that don't have expertise in that area. And then lastly, remember, it takes time to develop subject matter expertise. So it may not be the newest person, the newest staff member. So as you know, team members, we need to know that it's going to take time to develop that. Okay. All right. So Susan, if you would, if you could launch the first poll, I'm going to ask you all, in your opinion, what is the worst part of an unproductive meeting?
Give everybody a few seconds to complete the poll. I'll give it another 10 seconds and then I'll. Okay, I'm going to stop the poll, and I will share the results.
All right. All right, good. So some people said attendees are distracted. Yes, that's a big one. Off topic. Oh, it's interesting. Nobody said wrong people in the meeting. And a lot of people talked about no solution. That's very frustrating. But this, I'm here with, I think I'm with this camp. All of the above, right, can be very frustrating. So good. Thank you for taking that poll. I wanted to just kind of get your thoughts there, because another role of a team member that is key, right, is attending meetings. Right, you can't get around it. You're going to have to be at meetings. You may have to serve on committees. So, and a lot of times we don't like to do that because we have been to unproductive meetings in the past. So how can you kind of proactively or actively, participate in a team meeting so that you can get the most out of it. So the first thing is to prepare before the meeting. I know we're all busy. I know we're all rushing around from meeting to meeting, and sometimes you're just off of one Zoom call onto the next, or out of one room into the next room for a meeting. So, but if you can take some time to kind of stop and prepare for it beforehand, it goes a long way. So if there is an agenda, hopefully so, you can review that, or even just reach out to whoever's leading and say, hey, what are we planning to talk about at this meeting, so I can be prepared. If there's been past meetings, especially if it's like a status update or some type of meeting where you meet periodically, weekly or monthly, you want to review the minutes from past meetings. Hopefully somebody took minutes, right? So let's think about what the minutes were from last meeting, and then determine ahead of time what you want to get out of it. So by the end of this meeting, I personally need to know this, or I need to have gotten out of it this. So just being prepared when you come. Try to volunteer. A lot of times it's hard if you are facilitating the meeting and trying to take notes at the same time. So just a simple, hey, can I help you take notes? Do you need any help capturing minutes? Let me help you keep time so we can stay on track. So volunteering for a role will keep you active. And then, of course, practicing active listening. So the key question here is, are you really listening, or are you waiting to talk? Right. So making sure that you're actively listening as part of that meeting, and then sharing your thoughts and supporting your other teammates. We had a meeting several years ago with a professor here at NC State, who was talking about active listening, and he mentioned that they have actually done studies that show there are areas of people's brains that light up when you ask, active type questions. Hey, let me make sure I understood you, right? So those reflective type questions are go a long way when you're in the middle of a meeting and discussion. Okay. All right, so just a few more here. So working with users is a key part of a team member's role. Collaboration with the overall team is huge. So this is a study that I took a look at, that were written by two students, one from UC Berkeley and one from Stanford School of Business. So based on almost a decade of research that they did developing case studies on a range of successful networks that they were studying, they identified there's really a common pattern of factors that are essential for collaboration. And they ranked it well, not ranked, but they fell into these four buckets. So the first one for collaboration success was a focus on the mission. So making sure that everyone is focused on the task, focused on the project, the overall end goal. Even when we disagree, a lot of times disagreements stem from just we really have the same mission in mind, but we just have different ways of reaching the end. And so if you keep people focused on mission, that goes a long way towards collaboration. Making sure that you're managing through trust and not control, right? And so this is not just the role of a project manager. This is also the role of a team member, right? Because you may have been delegated a certain part of that project to manage. So making sure that you're managing through trust and not control. We're starting and ending when we say we're going to. We're gonna. We said we would get something done at a specific time. We're going to get it done on time, right? So managing through trust, promoting others, not just yourself. And then this one I love: build constellations and not just stars, right? So each star may shine bright, but it's really only when you work together that you see the whole picture of that constellation. So we want to build constellations and not just stars. Okay. All right. All right, so the next role is completing your individual deliverables. This seems to go without saying, right? But but sometimes it's one of the most difficult items in that execution phase of project management. Actually completing your deliverables and a time and assigned task within the deadline. All right, so some top 10 things to help keep your projects on time. It's important to know your strengths and weaknesses. If you are falling behind on something, or you really don't have strength in that area, it is okay to say I need help, right? So know your strengths, know your weaknesses. It's great to have stretch goals and be able to stretch and do other things, other assigned tasks, but it's important to kind of know your baseline strengths and weaknesses. Understand the scope of your role before you start. So what is it that you're responsible for? Remember, that goes back to setting realistic expectations. What am I contributing to this? Set your personal goal with a realistic timeline. All right, so what am I going to get completed based on all the other competing priorities that I have? Realistically, when can I get this done? Make sure you understand the final overall schedule and deadline. Use collaboration tools, right? We're in 2023, right? Almost 2024. So we have tons of tools, right? Teams and Zooms and all these. I'm getting ready to talk about AI in just a minute. So we have so much collaboration. We have so many tools, so leverage those. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I cannot stress that enough. I would rather over communicate than under communicate, and that's key on any project. Recognize red flags, present things early. We all know that bad news does not age well with time. So communicate, excuse me. All right, celebrate key milestones. Know that sometimes things are not within your control, so you need to have a contingency plan. So we talked about the importance of being able to problem solve, having a plan A, plan B, even plan C. Okay. All right, so another key thing, and this goes along the lines with collaboration, is working cohesively, understanding how to manage conflict. Now, generally, a lot of this will be within the role of the overall project manager, but even as a team member, you need to be able to manage conflict, because sometimes you may disagree with the project manager or with other team members or with stakeholders, right? So it's important to know it's okay. Conflict happens. Sometimes you're not going to agree. Conflict is just divergent behaviors or methods or aims. Remember, a lot of times we may have a similar mission. We just have a different way of reaching it. So, just conflict, knowing that conflict is a byproduct of growth. It's okay to have conflict within a team as long as it's healthy conflict. It's okay to have that, okay? But when it's managed correctly, it can promote better communication than if people were to just back away from it. Conflict can be the team's biggest barrier, or it could be your greatest asset. All right. And so here we just talk about a structured approach to conflict management, which is integrated negotiation. And just having a goal. You'll get these slides afterwards. So if you want to kind of walk through that, you can walk through kind of the structured approach for how to handle conflict. All right, just a couple more here. The next to last role of a team member is accurately reporting status. This one, I think we don't talk enough about. It seems like it's pretty straightforward. Like, okay, we're having a status update. Tell me where you are. Are you 25% done, 50%, 100% done on that task? But there's a lot more to it than that. We're very familiar with the traditional scope creep, right? And I like to define scope creep as anything maybe additional that your customer is asking you to do, or maybe even your project sponsor is asking you to do something that was not in that original charter or that the original scope of your project. But there are three other really important types of creep that we don't often talk about. The first one is hope creep. Okay, that's where your team members are getting behind schedule, but they are reporting that they're on schedule, hoping that by the time you get to the next status update, they will have caught up. This is a very, very dangerous place for a team to be, and particularly for whoever's managing that project, because your team members are behind and you may have no visibility to it. right? So it's important as a team member to accurately report where you feel you are and if you need help. The next one is effort creep. That's where the team members are working, but they're still not making progress. I have seen effort creep derail some very, very important projects, right? So if team members are, if you as a team member are working, but you're not making progress, now we need to ask some questions. Do I have the resources that I need? Do I have a weakness in this area where maybe I need some help? Do I not have enough time to get it done? Right? So effort creep is important to keep in mind. And then the last one is feature creep. This is where the team members are adding features or are adding scope to the project. We call that gold plating, right? So just one is like, oh, it's great that it does this, but let's make it do this also, and let's make it do that. And it was not within the original scope. And so feature creep can also creep up on you. So just keep in mind, accurately reporting is important as well. All right, and then lastly, documenting the process. A lot of times when a project ends and we reach that closeout, that last phase of the closeout phase, we have a tendency to just throw the project over the fence, right? Or we're like, oh, we're done. Let's move on to the next thing because we have 10,000 other projects. But it's important to properly close out a project, and that includes documenting. So things like your drawings, if you have drawings and programs, standard operating procedures and work instructions. A lot of times when we're completing projects or doing opportunities for improvement, we may have it may impact our training or our documentation. So we need to go and update SOPs. You need to close out that charter. You may have to present the final project report. So you as a team member are part of those things and helping document the final outcomes. All right. Very good. So now let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about the future of project management, because this is where everybody's head is a little is now. So and the reason why I wanted to put this in here is because as a team member, um, especially when we talk about things like documenting the project, we have all these collaboration tools, all these software tools that can be an asset and of benefit for you to use to help you with closing out your project or with documenting your project, and even doing some of those what we call it, um, some of those administrative tasks for you. Okay, so one last poll question, Susan, if you could put up the last poll. How often do you use generative AI? So the options are: I use it every day, once in a while, I never use it, or what is it?
And we'll give folks another 10 seconds or so to complete the poll. And we'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results.
All right. All right, so some people said every day. Majority said once in a while, never used it. And some people said, what is it? Just define it for me. All right, good. So thank you for that. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what it is and how it relates to PM. So artificial intelligence versus generative AI. So I'm going to touch on this just a little bit. We do have another webinar that's coming up November the 15th, same time, that goes into more in-depth chat GPT and how to use it for management systems. So that's going to be a fun one. So I really invite you to come back for that. So AI is really augmented intelligence that helps experts scale their capabilities. That's the broad term for it. So you've seen it in everything from helping you recognize speech to playing games. When you're playing games against a computer, right? You're playing solitaire on your computer against AI. It helps you make decisions. Generative AI is a subset of AI that's really focused on generating new data and unique data. So this things like images, music, text, even entire virtual worlds. So if you've heard of the metaverse, or if you have children that like to play Roblox like mine, they create entire new virtual worlds through generative AI. So believe it or not, you are most likely using some form of generative AI every single day. If you have an Alexa at your house, one of those that's talking back to you, you're using generative AI. If you use Microsoft Outlook, um, or even Microsoft Word, I should say, that gives you the option to complete your sentences, that's generative AI. If you are in Gmail, we use Gmail at the university, or Outlook, you've seen those where it gives you nudges to respond to your email. Like, hey, you sent this email 5 days ago with no response. Do you want to resend it? That's a form of generative AI. So it's basically looking at what's out there, and it's kind of predicting what might be helpful for you to use to complete that sentence or to respond. And so there's actually, I want to show you here. Well, let me talk a little bit about what's on this slide, then I'll switch over. There is I mentioned the Project Management Institute. There is a North Carolina chapter of PMI, NCPMI, that holds an annual meeting every year in Raleigh, North Carolina. And they've been holding it virtually as well for those that aren't local to this area. And so this past year, they had a gentleman there. His name was Mashoud Ahmed, and he's with his website is pmassistant.ai. And he did a presentation there on how they're using AI and Chat GPT in particular for the future of PM. And so I'm going to do a demonstration that's similar to what he did, but it's much shorter. So I'll take you to that in a minute. But before that, I want to just highlight some other things that you can use Chat GPT for in project management, or even in business in general. It allows you to work with, if you're hiring for a certain position, you can upload job descriptions along with a set of resumes, and it allows you to rank those resumes for that job description. Now I would say consult HR law for that to know whether or not it's okay, but it gives you that opportunity. In the paid version, there's a Chat GPT 3.5, which is the version that's open to everybody. But then there's also a version 4 that's paid, that also provides you the ability to do data analysis. So you can load graphs and pictures. Okay. But what I think is really important for you to know, let me click off here and open this up. I kept mentioning PMI, Project Management Institute. They have a whole AI in project management website now set up. So as you are delving more into project management and helping shape the future of it, you can look to AI to help you. So I just wanted to point that out if anybody's interested in visiting that page. Okay. So let me do this demonstration, just kind of give you an idea of how you can use this as a project team member or project manager. Okay, so I have a transcript here. If you have ever used, well, we're in Zoom now, but right, if you're using Zoom or you're using Microsoft Teams, there's an option when you have a meeting to download the transcript of that meeting. Now I would say I would get permission from everyone that attended before you do that, right? But let's say I'm going to feed Chat GPT a fake. This is just transcript that I made up for an executive team meeting, and I'm going to ask it to give me some key answers based on this. Okay, so I've already done this in the background to help save some time. So here's hopefully everybody can see that. I'll make it a little bit bigger. So here's my ChatGPT screen. So I told ChatGPT earlier, I said, look, I'm going to give you a transcript of meeting minutes. And based on that, please help me summarize the meeting. So of course, ChatGPT is always happy to oblige. Of course, please provide the transcript and I'll be happy to help. So I took that transcript and I basically just copied and pasted it here. I told it who was in the meeting and then I put the transcript and I told it to generate. And so immediately ChatGPT summarized the meeting for me. So it tells me this is who was there and these are all the topics you covered. So it's just going through the discussion and pulling out the key topics that were covered and summarizing them for me. Why is this important for you? So as a team member, let's say you've been asked to summarize the meeting for the folks that were there and maybe folks that couldn't attend. So now instead of you having to go think through and type up, oh, okay, this is what we talked about, ChatGPT can be your personal assistant and do that for you. So it's going to pull out, these were all the things we talked about. And then it even goes one step further and gives you the action items. But now I like these action items, but I don't like it in this format. So I can ask ChatGPT, let me throw this in here. I can say, so based on that same transcript, provide action items, but I want the owner and I want the deadline and I want it in a table format. So let's see what it does. Certainly. So here's your table. So it's going to start building that table for, again, just based on the transcript, it's going to pull out what the action items were and any deadlines that we talked about and assign it an owner. So now, again, this will save you time. You don't have to go try to think through that. You have a personal assistant that's going to help you. Okay. Let's look at one more thing that it can help me do. I want to say now, based on that, give me the top 3 risks that I need to think about or be aware of as a result of my team meeting. And remember, it remembers the conversation. So you don't have to retype that transcript. This is just it's a chat bot, right? So it's a conversation that I'm having, just like I'm having a conversation with you. And just from that transcript, it's going to pull out. Now, we didn't talk about risk at all in that meeting, but it's going to infer. Remember, it's generative. So it's generating new thoughts and ideas. So just based on that, it's coming up with things that could be of risk to you: incorrect documentation, delays, challenges, and so forth. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a taste. We don't have enough time to really I could really geek out on ChatGPT. We don't have enough time to go there, but I did, for those that want slides, I did put some of that in here for you for later. But the benefit of it is that it's really going to be an assistant for you, so that as you're wrapping up your meetings, you can help tie in. It'll help analyze data, things like that. Okay. All right. So let's wrap this up because we're running out of time. Last thing I want to talk about is the class that we offer. So we do have a 2-day practical, and I say we, IES, Industry Expansion Solutions. We offer a 2-day practical project management course that we can teach either on site at your facility, and then a few times a year we offer an open enrollment class. Unfortunately, this year we didn't have enough people register, so we're not going to hold it. But if we do have enough interest for next year, we can open up an open enrollment class. But again, as long as you have at least 4 people in your organization, we can bring it to you. And so in that class, we're going to go a lot deeper. It's based on the Project Management Institute's phases of a project. And it talks about the fundamentals of project management. We delve into the role of the project manager more deeply and team members. We step through each one of these phases. We talk about how to do earned value management, how to lay out network diagrams, and things like that. And we'll step you through each phase with a case study. And then at the end of that class, we look at all the factors of successful projects and how to close things out. So that's all I have. I hope this has been beneficial to you. Susan, do we have any questions?
I'm not seeing any so far, but folks, if you have questions, please put those in the Q&A. Thank you, Adrian. I thought that was very informative. I had no idea
Good.
I'm using generative AI every day.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Good. All right. All
Now, we'll
right.
just remind folks, we will send out the follow-up email that will include a link to the recording as well as the PowerPoint and some additional resources. That will probably come out in the next day or two. It comes from the IES Zoom user account, so just be on the lookout for that.
And Robert, I see you had a question. Oh, and here's one more. Let me know. I sent you a response back, Robert. Let me know. All right. So one from Dakota. What is the fee to come on site to do the workshop? Oh, Dakota, that's great. We have it varies. We have a daily rate that we go by, but then so you're charged our daily rate, for travel, and then a lot of it is just based on how many team members, I mean how many participants, and so we just charge the cost of the workbook materials. So Dakota, if you're interested, we can absolutely have somebody reach out to you and give you an estimate based on what your needs are. Absolutely. Okay, he said that'd be lovely. So if there's, Robert, I don't know if you caught that. We'll get Dakota's information so we can send him some more info. Good. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there are none, thank you so much for participating. Thank you, Ben. Ben said, wonderful. I wish I had this intro 3 or 4 years ago. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that. I'm glad it
Hey,
was helpful.
Adrian, we did have one question that
Oh,
came
sure.
in. It's like, if
Okay.
I'm practicing project management, but I'm not certified, what would you recommend taking?
Good question. Yeah, so I would start with the PMI's website. They have a ton of it's just PMI.org. They have a ton of free resources that you can start with. Our class really is for practical project managers. So for those that have been thrown into project management, maybe that's not your title, but you've been doing it for years. We really do start you out high level, practical. What do I need from start to finish in order to go off and manage a project? So you could start there. You could start with PMI.org, and those are probably the best places to get a jump start on it. Yeah, very good question.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I am
Good.
not seeing any additional questions. So with that, I will thank you, Adrian, for today's presentation, and thank everyone for attending. And we hope you have a great day and hope to see you at a future webinar.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.